My name is James, and I have been eating the forbidden fruit of pornography and masturbation. I was entangled, lost in a labyrinth I never thought I'd escape. In the heart of my solitude, I was battling a beast that fed on my guilt, my shame, and my darkest secrets. This beast was my addiction to pornography, a silent predator that lurked in the shadows of my life, unseen, unspoken, and unacknowledged by everyone around me. I was living a double life. To the world, I was just an average bloke, a husband, a friend, a man of faith. But behind the closed doors of my home, I was a prisoner. Shackled by the chains of lust, I was bound by the images that flashed across my screen night after night. I thought marriage would be my salvation. I believed that the love of a good woman would extinguish the fire of desire that raged within me. But I was wrong. The beast was relentless, unyielding. It continued to gnaw at me, whispering sweet lies of temporary satisfaction. I tried to fight it. I really did. I made countless promises to myself, vowing to quit, to break free from the grip of this obsession. But every attempt was in vain. Each failure plunged me deeper into the abyss of guilt and despair. The worst part was the secrecy, the constant fear of being discovered, the dread of the judgment I would face if my secret was revealed. I carried this burden alone, convinced that no one would understand. I was drowning in a sea of shame. Every time I looked into the mirror, I saw a stranger staring back at me. A man I no longer recognized, a man I no longer respected. It was a constant reminder of the person I'd become, a slave to my own desires. The guilt was unbearable. I was living a lie, deceiving my wife, my friends, and myself. I was betraying the faith I professed, the values I held dear. With every click, every image, I was drifting further away from the man I wanted to be. It was a secret I thought I'd carry to my grave. In the darkest corners of our lives, sometimes a light shines through. That was exactly what happened to me. One Sunday, as I sat in the pew listening to my pastor preach, a light started to flicker. He was talking about porn and masturbation, topics that were usually whispered in hushed tones, if spoken about at all. But there he was, addressing it with conviction as he stood under the spotlight on the pulpit. He spoke about how these addictions thrive in secrecy. The way he described it resonated with my own experiences. I felt seen, understood. He wasn't preaching at me, he was reaching out, offering a lifeline. Among the words that echoed in my mind, there was one verse that stood out, James 5:16. Confess your faults one to another and pray one for another that ye may be healed. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. The words seemed to leap off the page and grab hold of me. I could almost feel them stirring something within me. I had read this verse before, but never had it felt so personal, so poignant. The idea of confession, of bringing my secret into the light, was terrifying. But the promise of healing was too compelling to ignore. I realized that I had been trying to fight this battle on my own, keeping my struggles locked away in a dark corner of my life. But this verse was shedding light on a different path. A path that involved opening up, confessing my faults, and seeking help. This was my turning point. The moment when I began to understand that I didn't have to face my addiction alone, that there were others who could help, who could pray for me, who could offer support and understanding. It was a daunting realization, but it also brought a glimmer of hope. I realized my struggle wasn't a solitary one. I wasn't alone. In that moment, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, I felt like I was moving towards the light, away from the shadows of my addiction. It was never easy to bare your soul, especially when it's marred with guilt. Imagine standing at the edge of a precipice, knowing that one step forward could either lead to your liberation or your downfall. That's how it felt when I decided to confess my addiction to my pastor. The decision didn't come easy. In fact, the thought of revealing my darkest secret was like holding a handful of burning coals. It was painful, and I was afraid. I was afraid of being judged, of being ostracized. The fear almost consumed me, but there was something stronger than fear, and that was the desire for freedom. I remember the day vividly. The sun shining brightly outside was a stark contrast to the storm brewing within me. I was there in my pastor's office, my heart pounding like a drum, my mouth dry as a desert. I was about to reveal the part of me I had kept hidden for so long. As I started talking, my words came out in a rush, like water breaching a dam. I spoke about my addiction, about the countless nights I spent in the clutches of pornography, about the numerous resolutions broken, about the shame and guilt that kept me awake at night. With each word, I could feel the weight lifting off my chest. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. I was facing my fear, and in doing so, I was taking the first step towards overcoming it. My pastor listened, not with judgment, but with understanding. He didn't interrupt or criticize. He simply listened, and by doing so, he provided me with the space to be honest, to be open, to be vulnerable. That day I learned the importance of removing the mask, of revealing your true self, no matter how flawed or imperfect. It was a lesson in honesty, in openness, and above all, in acceptance. The confession was just the beginning, but it was the most crucial step in my journey towards recovery. It was the day I decided to stop hiding, to stop running, and to face my addiction head-on. In the end, the truth had set me free. Life after confession was no bed of roses, but I was no longer alone. In the beginning, the journey towards freedom seemed like an insurmountable mountain. The temptation was always lurking around the corner, ready to pounce when I was at my weakest. But I was determined not to let my past define my future. The road was filled with challenges. There were days when the old habits tried to creep back in, whispering sweet nothings about temporary relief and false comfort. But each time I reminded myself of the verse that had given me hope, James 5:16, and the power of confession and prayer. Setbacks were part of the journey too. There were instances when I slipped, when the allure of the familiar threatened to pull me back into the darkness. But every time I fell, I rose again, stronger and more determined. Each setback was a lesson, a reminder of my human frailty, but also of my capacity to rise above it. Victories, no matter how small, kept me going. Each day without succumbing to the vice was a triumph. Each moment of successfully resisting the urge was a testament to my resolve. Every victory was a step closer to freedom, a strengthening of my resolve to break free from the chains of addiction. Throughout this journey, I was not alone. My pastor stood by my side, offering counsel and support. His faith in my ability to overcome gave me strength. His unwavering belief in the power of prayer became my lifeline. Prayer became my weapon against temptation. In moments of weakness, I found strength in the power of prayer. I realized that the effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man indeed availeth much. It was my shield, my fortress against the darkness that once held me captive. I've been free for 14 years. I became stronger with every passing day. I grow stronger in my resolve, more confident in my ability to win this battle. Because I know I am not alone in this fight. I completely stopped watching porn and no longer have any urge to watch. I've spent the last few years teaching and helping young men and women break free from this addiction. Your case is not an exemption. You can apply lessons learned from my story. Confess your addiction to someone who can pray for you. This will go a long way to heal you from this addiction. God bless you for listening to my story. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Motivate HQ. We are here to motivate you and make your life better.